Hello, welcome to episode 89 of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. This episode, Tracy and I are reviewing Satoshi Kon's second movie. That's the 2002 picture, Millennium Actress. It is a great movie, a great time. We had a lot of fun with this one. I love this film. This is my first time seeing it. Please enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Not Joanna Eggs podcast. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Robbie.
And this week we have another movie for you, and we're pretty much almost finishing out all of Satoshi Kon's films.
I think
basically.
I think this
have we done all of them?
Films.
So let's see.
We did Tokyo Godfathers.
We definitely did Paprika. Paprika was one of the first ones we did, and then there is there's also Paranoia Agent, but that's technically a series. We may end up doing that one eventually. I don't know, because I'm obsessed with the dog character from that show. I could do that at any time, frankly. But
true.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, that's so today we're talking about Millennium Actress, which is Satoshi Kon's second movie.
Yep, came out in 2001. It follows the story of I forget what her last name is, but I know her name is Chiyoko. I think is it Chiyoko Furuhara? Or,
Fujiwara.
Chiyoko Fujiwara. Yeah, she's basically it's this TV interviewer and his beleaguered, sarcastic cameraman go to find this elusive actress who has been not acting for essentially 30 years when she retired from the industry, and she has decided to give him a very exclusive interview or whatever, chronicling her entire life and going through both her film career and also kind of the whole impetus for her becoming an actress in the first place. Which, Robbie, do you want to give kind of more of an overview from that for like what started her off? I kind of recall it, but I don't exactly remember all of it. So
it kind of goes like this. This studio called Guinea Studios goes out of business, and that's what sort of starts the whole thing.
It's kind of like a retrospective sort of thing in support of the studio, just showing like, hey, this is one of our biggest title, actresses. So
yeah, exactly. So the main, she's the main character, but the TV producer and his cameraman go to do an interview with her, and she tells her life story. But what's sort of interesting is the thing kind of like it very swiftly becomes confused as it's blending her memory of her actual life with her movies. And so there's this sort of weird like weaving in and out of reality thing that's happening.
Yeah, it's very dreamlike, and that's the thing that happens with pretty much everything that Satoshi Kon has ever touched, is that he obviously likes having a lot of layering when it comes to the storytelling, similar to how Perfect Blue had Mima going in and out from whether or not she was operating in the real world or if she was hallucinating something, or in, like sometimes the coincidental timing that happened in Tokyo Godfathers or Paprika in itself, just going back and forth between both dreams and reality. It's similar to this because we're going back and forth between both the movies that she was cast in and the real world parallels that she keeps experiencing that seem tied to those roles.
Right, and then like a few moments here and there of them actually in the moment,
which is delightful.
Yeah, which are
there's them basically just trailing behind her as though just trying to keep up and just be like, wait, we're in Kyoto now? Now we're in feudal Japan? What?
The poor cameraman is just like, God help him. He's just trying to stick with it. He's just trying to understand. But
I'd be in the same boat as him, but eventually he learns to roll with it, which I think is funny. He's just like, dude, just let it go. It's fine.
I'm probably the TV producer in reality.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. With her. No. Yeah. And I would probably be the camera person and be like, what? I'd mostly just be confused. I'd enjoy it, but I would just be like, oh okay. There's flaming arrows everywhere. I would have had the same reaction that he did.
So that scene. Well, okay. So before we jump into that, because I do want to talk about that scene.
But like her specific motivation, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah. Her sort of motivation is when she's like, God, a kid, like
She couldn't have been more than like 13, 14, whatever.
Yeah, I think she was probably about 14, and she meets basically a rebel from the opposite side of the Sino-Japanese War.
Yeah, some kind of revolutionary for, I guess he was going to meet up with his colleagues or something that were fighting in Manchuria.
Yeah, I think that was it. And so she hides him, helps him escape, and then he gives her a key and tells her to meet him later, where he's from.
He doesn't say where,
like
but...
Yeah, he just says, like, wherever I'm from in some, like, loose way.
Yeah.
So that ends up, because the first film she gets pitched is being shot where he said he was going.
Yeah, like
So
he was heading back to Manchuria, so she's like, "Oh, well, I'll just." She was talent scouted earlier that week or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, I'll talk to the producer so I can get an acting job, and maybe I'll see him there." So she just takes the
Yeah, that was
gig.
kind of
Like I like that she mentioned that to the interviewer when they cut to that scene where she's like, "See, I didn't really have a whole lot of interest in acting. I just was going there to see if I could find him." I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
all right.
Kinda hilarious.
People have gotten into acting for other reasons, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
And so that's pretty much it. And it takes a while. Like, that is ultimately sort of like her through line, which she's always going for.
yeah.
And then it's just kind of going through her movies from there. And she, like, as far as like what we see in the movie, there's everything.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems to be like there tends to be a lot of parallels in between like what's going on in the movies that she's cast in and like her real life, like as we mentioned before. But like to the point that it's almost uncanny, and you're wondering either is she possibly an unreliable narrator, or is this just because like she had them incorporate parts of her memories into those roles? And we're not still 100% sure.
For me, I lean that she's kind of I think that she's a little bit of an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, I got that impression too.
That's
Just because
just how
some
I
of
read
it
it.
seemed way too convenient, you know.
Well, it just,
like
to me-
like she's chasing after this person again. Like I don't know.
Right, the way it kind of like moves in and out of reality just feels to me like she kind of like loses track of things.
Yeah, like somehow they're kind of bleeding into each other eventually.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting. Another thing to like point out, we mentioned Perfect Blue, which was Kon's first movie.
Yeah.
So he initially wanted to do Paprika next, but interesting, or somewhat amusingly given this story, the distribution company that did Perfect Blue went bankrupt before they could start work on Paprika.
Oh no, that sucks.
So,
God,
I mean, it does, but I think
anime
that-
is such a tough industry in Japan. I
It
swear.
is, but I think that's part of why this movie exists. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
but like, you know, the initial thing being a movie studio going bankrupt parallels his actual experience.
I mean, let it not be said that Satoshi Kon does not have a dark sense of humor.
I mean, he's pretty great.
It comes up a lot. I like it a lot.
Yeah. One thing I think, so I definitely think also like Perfect Blue is sort of viewed as and kind of works as a companion piece to Millennium Actress. Like they're kind of
Yeah.
because they're both ultimately like this sort of weird in and out of reality, and we have trouble telling what's real, what's not, and then it seamlessly moves from one to the other, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely say that Millennium Actress is probably a lot easier to follow than Perfect Blue was, at least the first time I saw Perfect Blue, that is. Because
Yeah,
like the
I would
instant I
agree.
saw Millennium Actress, it's a lot more linear, but you still get the similar kind of like, the way that the story is delivered is extremely similar to Perfect Blue.
Yeah, well, and I think like what Perfect Blue is doing is much less. Perfect Blue just ultimately is a much darker narrative,
Yeah.
whereas
yeah.
Millennium Actress, I mean, it's not. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's like optimistic.
No, but I think
necessarily, but-
it's like the yin to Perfect Blue's yang, you know? Like
Yeah,
they
I
kind of
think
they
that's a good
complement
way to
each
put
other,
it.
but they're both different in that way. So
Yeah. So I think I really like that aspect.
yeah. It was refreshing.
Yeah.
It's a lot more optimistic than a lot of movies that he's done. I'll say that. So
Well,
I mean,
I think
like this and
Paprika-
Tokyo Godfathers are pretty, Paprika tends to have a lot of darker moments in it too. Like it's.
Yeah.
I mean, Paprika is just a mindfuck in general. So
It's a good.
yeah, but I like the kind of lighter stuff. Like this and Tokyo Godfathers would make a lot of sense as like kind of like companion pieces to each other because like they're both more light-hearted stories than what he's kind of known for. So
Yeah. So you mentioned the flaming arrows scene. Do you want to talk about that real quick? Because I do want to get into that one.
Yeah, actually, I would love to. So there's this one particular scene that involves, like, I guess it's supposed to be feudal Japan, something like that. Like, I just remember that she has, like, the very, like, tiny, nearly non-existent eyebrows or whatever, like, which I've never really gotten, but I get it stylistic, whatever. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't know. What
I never
is.
got it. Sorry. But, yeah, so it's this one particular scene where she's supposed to be, like, either, like, a lady or some kind of queen or something going after the lord who's supposed to be in place of the soldier that she had saved before, based on the story narrative. And she is visited by this character called the Wraith, who's just basically like a hag that tricks her.
Yeah, she's like this weird evil hag type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was kind of wondering if that was supposed to be an analog character for her mother, because her mother's just kind of a hater throughout the whole thing. She's like,
That
nope,
is
you can't
kind
go
of-
into acting. I was wondering if that's kind of what they were going for, because the
I feel
Wraith
like it
kind of
was-
like curses her to think that she can never get past it, you know?
Yeah, I think it's something similar. I don't think. I mean,
They're not direct parallels. It's
yeah, I
probably
don't think
more
we're
like
getting,
the
a
other
1-to-1
lady
ratio
actress.
there, right? But I think that's maybe the loose analog.
Yeah, that was the impression I got from it anyway. But essentially, the Wraith tricks her into drinking this tea, which she later reveals is 1,000-year tea, meaning that she can never get past this one particular curse. And the Wraith says, like, I love you and I hate you. Like, I love you more than you could ever imagine, but I won't let you, get over this curse thing, which is basically like her constantly chasing after this dude, more or less. I don't know if that's meant to, like, totally encapsulate all of the films that she's done, because, like, but, like, obviously it keeps weighing on her conscience, like, everything, even when she's not working in acting and when she's communicating with her other coworkers and everything, it's obviously still, like, messing with her head. Like, she keeps holding onto the key. She can never really get past it.
Right, and that's kind of, I think that's one of the big reasons that I lean towards that sort of, like, unreliable narrator angle, is because she keeps coming back to this image, which is part of one of her movies, and then, like, it seems to be that there's, like, a series of movies she does that follow that character.
Yeah, like it's almost like a series or something, potentially.
Yeah, but I think that's maybe one of the reasons that she seems to identify so strongly with her, is because I think that was the character that essentially encapsulated her, like, young adulthood, like, in her, like, 20s, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, and, like, honestly, I will say this, like, so there's one trope that I really like, that I don't know if there's an official name for it, but I like it when they have a fake movie or a fake band or some kind of fake pop culture thing that all the characters are super into, and then when you actually listen to it, it sucks. Or it's like, it's kind of like the opposite of a Goofy movie where they keep talking up Powerline and then you listen to them and you're like, oh no, I can see how this is popular. But, like, they do that with her movies where it's like all of them, I'm like, oh, I would watch the shit out of all of these. Like, I could see how it would be feasible that she'd be a very popular actress, because she captures a whole lot of cornerstones of Japanese cinema. So she's not just there for, like, the feudal stories. She's there as, like, basically this like ninja bandit character. She's there as a space hero, like, like an astronaut, more or less. She's there as a scientist in a kaiju movie where, like, Godzilla's there, like, all of it. So it's both like it's kind of like them paying homage to Japanese cinema and just showing, like, no, she was there for all of it. Like, they even had, like, a post-apocalyptic one, like a World War II drama, all of it. Like, and I thought that was very, very interesting that they went from that approach too.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the things that Satoshi Kon really wanted to do with this movie, was to kind of, like, do an homage to Japanese cinema in general. I think one that visually is just, like, obvious is at the beginning of her series as this sort of, like, feudal Japanese princess or whatever. Tracy made the joke about, like, suddenly there's arrows being fired at us. That is
because there's just, like, people on horseback immediately just, like, running after them.
So that is, like, intentional or not, it's absolutely, like, almost a carbon copy of a scene from Throne of Blood, which is
Yeah.
Akira Kurosawa's take on Macbeth.
True. Yeah. I will say I really enjoyed the character of the TV producer / interviewer because he's such an earnest fanboy. Like, it's so sweet.
Exactly. That's
like, honestly, will you just talk about his backstory? Because, like, he's fascinating in itself.
So,
like, the camera guy just exists, but this dude, oh man.
Yeah, the camera guy is really just there almost as an audience surrogate. Mm-hmm. But the producer, Genya, it turns out, is not only a diehard fan of Chiyoko, thank you. But he also used to work with her, basically.
Yeah, he was basically an intern or like a runner or something.
Yeah, he was some sort of like low-level employee.
Probably like a production assistant, maybe something like that.
Yeah, something like this. And so he's been a fan of her since before then, and then he meets her during that, and actually at one point, we find out near the end of the film, he saved her life during a shoot when something went wrong with something.
It was another earthquake, I think. An earthquake hit the studio. Yeah, like there's a big There's a big recurring motifs of earthquakes happening because obviously Japan, but it's like she was born during an earthquake that happened in 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake. There's another one that's actually going on when they're doing the interview. Yeah. So I'm just like, honey, you need to move wherever you are because you're going to keep being traumatized by these damn earthquakes. But, I guess it comes with the territory. So... Yes, but there was an earthquake that happened at the studio, and he protected her from getting crushed by a giant scaffolding or something.
Yeah.
Or a catwalk. I forget.
I think it was like I think it was like a catwalk or something.
Yeah, something like that. Something up in the rafters where they have like the Klieg lights and all that. Yeah.
And then we also find out that it was around this time that this detective / former police lieutenant or something like this who had been...
He may as well be Javert. Like, this dude's insane.
I mean, yeah, kind of.
They seem to be trying to do that with him. He's like, I'm going to get my man.
Yeah, so he's after he recurs throughout the film a few times, but he's initially shown chasing this artist.
Yeah.
And so he comes to...
so the artist is the same dude that's the revolutionary going to Manchuria.
Right, yeah, we actually never said that. He's technically an artist.
By the way, he's an artist, too.
Right.
Because he's the biggest dreamboat ever. Even though we never see his face, so he could be ugly. I don't know.
He could be awful. He could have a hair lip.
Oh, man, that's not his fault.
It's not his fault. Maybe I don't know. Anywho.
It's not your fault, old guy.
So...
he's not old. Spoiler.
So... The lieutenant or whatever, this former military guy, he gives Chiyoko a letter from the artist because he had captured the artist way back when, which...
Yeah, we don't find this out until the very tail end of the movie,
we're like at the end of the movie when this happens.
Yeah.
So, basically, he gives her that letter, she leaves, and basically, like, that's about the time at which she quits acting. Mm-hmm. And... after she leaves, the military guy tells the producer who at in the past, he tells him that he actually had tortured and killed the artist. Mm-hmm.
Because he wouldn't budge. He wouldn't talk.
Because he wouldn't tell anything. And so we find out that, like, even though she's been chasing him for ever, he's been dead for a long time.
And this is while she's running away because, like, he gives her a letter that I guess the guy had written for her before he passed away. She basically goes on a pilgrimage to Hokkaido, which is a very like mountainous, like kind of icy island up in the top of the Japanese. I forget. They're just island system, whatever.
Peninsula? No.
Kind of a peninsula? I don't know. Basically, she gets a letter from the police officer dude, whatever, that says that he is based in Hokkaido. Like, that's where he was doing his painting thing. But she doesn't know anything about the whole him being tortured and killed thing. Right. So she goes up there, basically, and trying to find him and just figure out where he is. But, like, it's all for naught. And she doesn't figure that out until, like, way later. So
yeah, well, so that's kind of the thing, right, is that she ultimately quits acting and quits looking for him because she realizes that she's no longer the person that he met. And she bets he would never recognize her.
Yeah, I mean, well, it has been, like 30 years, whatever. She's not wrong.
It's been quite a while, and she's not wrong, right?
Yeah. But at the same time, like, it's still a very romantic notion. That's kind of why I like that she does it. Because... yeah, go ahead.
That's sort of the thing at the end. It's not that the joy, in some sense, was not looking for him. Well, the joy was in looking for him, not in finding him, right? The journey is the destination.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's like, and I would say that, like in real life, like sometimes you can, I don't like saying this because I know this is kind of a cliche thing, but like she might have been more in love with the idea of him as opposed to actually him, because she only knew him for like a couple days anyway.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like she, it's fun to have like that being kind of your purpose. It's like she had this internal drive thing constantly going where like it was like she was kind of treating acting as a means to an end to be reunited with this dude, even though like he had that much of an impact on her in such a small time. So it's like, even if she hadn't been looking for him the whole time, she probably wouldn't have still had those experiences that wouldn't have come from her having that motivation. So in many ways, like she lived a fuller life having that as being a drive for her. So
yeah, and I think that's ultimately the point, is that her journey, even though it is searching for this guy, it's also more about the things that she experienced because of that.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's not like the whole, like the I don't want to, bring up like a Disney thing or whatever, but it's not like she's not doing this for a dude. It's like, it's incidental that he's involved with it, but she doesn't get rewarded by having the whole thing of like having a relationship with this guy. It's like, no, she gets to experience her own life independent of him, even if she's still, you can still like think about, like someone, like a friendship or some kind of relationship or some sort of connection that you have with someone else, even if it ultimately doesn't go back to how you remember it being. It doesn't mean that it's not like it's invalid that it, didn't happen at all. It's like, you have your memories and the things you associate with it. So, and that can still be worth it. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I like the kind of message behind it, Yeah,
it's, absolutely.
Yeah, she's probably not the strongest character that he's ever developed, but it's definitely interesting. I like the way that they approach their storytelling and all that. So. Yeah,
well, I think that's the other sort of thing. That's another thing in terms of the companion piece with Perfect Blue. Mm-hmm. Perfect Blue, a lot of it has to do with the ways in which Mima's identity gets sort of modulated or misunderstood by male characters.
Yeah, well, she is the essential part of the male gaze. Like, everything that she does is scrutinized and ridiculed. Like, I mean, it's kind of like you take the awful otaku fan that stalks Mima in Perfect Blue and compare it with this dude, where, like, the producer, he's obviously a huge fan of her, but he's never trying to get anything from her or trying to hurt her in any way. He goes out of his way to help her.
Right.
Yeah, no, and he doesn't think that he's owed anything, Like, he doesn't do it for really some kind of satisfaction. Yeah, I mean, he wants to get a better understanding of her because, like, number one, the fact that she would even allow the interview to happen, he's super stoked for it, and he's extremely humbled by being able to be there. And it's not like, it's like a positive version of, like, otaku culture or, like, film fanaticism or media fanaticism, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think
because
so.
He's not overstepping his bounds as, like, both, technically, I guess, like, her colleague and also as a fan, It's like, it's a more positive representation than I've seen. So, yeah. I really do like that. Like, if you are going to do a double feature of these two, go with that in mind, because like you got Perfect Blue first as like the one to just be like, whoa, what the hell? And then you watch this as kind of like more of a palate cleanser. It's like, look, see, it's not all bad.
Yeah, right.
So
it's certainly more, I think I agree. Just a more positive representation of it.
Yeah, it's like as critical as Perfect Blue can be about the kind of stuff that it's talking about, like. You see the same parallels within Millennium Actress, but it's just, I don't know, it's just nice, Yeah. Like because they're technically both doing it for themselves, but sometimes they're, I don't know, I don't want to say like their intentions or like their purposes gets kind of askew, whatever, Mm-hmm. It's just they're obviously separately motivated. Like Mima wants to be able to be known separately from being in a girl group, and it seems like her fans are just completely relentless and not allowing her to do that. because they feel this weird ownership over it. Whereas Chiyoko just kind of goes through life and has a bunch of different roles and everything and seems to incur a lot of success, but ultimately it's not, it does make her happy, but not in the way of like, she still is constantly chasing that thing. So I think it keeps her hungry to keep like doing more roles and, trying out different, different kinds of things for her to do. So.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I mean, like, here's the thing. It's not as... this movie itself is really not as, like, mercurial and weird as a lot of his other movies are. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think, like...
I think that's why we're kind of having trouble, like, getting into too much other stuff. It's like, it's pretty direct, It's similar to Tokyo Godfathers.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? I think it, despite its sort of vacillation between reality and fantasy or imagination, it's not as sort of concerned with escapism as a problem as, Paprika or in some ways Perfect Blue, right?
Yeah.
It's really more interested in doing something a little different.
Yeah. And I will say that I could see if there was any kind of criticism about like, oh, well, why did this have to be animated? I'm like, that's technically true.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, it's just so much fun to watch. It's like, okay, granted, they don't go into a whole lot of the extremes that you would see with some animation, but like there's no reason to not still use it as a storytelling medium.
Yeah,
it's like this is like a case for adult animation. Like it's not all just about like fart jokes and tits and all that stuff. It's like no, just have a straightforward story, interesting characters. She experiences some kind of change, whatever, like hero's journey or whatever you want to do. It's just like, it doesn't all have to be like lowest common denominator stuff. Like this is the kind of storytelling I really like to see. It's not mind blowing, but it's a very interesting story, like there's nothing wrong with that. It can still be like, it's technically a slice of her entire life,
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing that's worth noting is in an interview, actually, Satoshi Kon said he would never do live action because one thing he can do in animation that you can't in live action is he can cheat to make things faster.
Yeah,
right?
And that was with one of the opening scenes when the cameraman sasses Genya and he throws this bag at his face and it only lasts for like 5 seconds, like, or not 5 seconds, like 5 or 6 frames or whatever it is, but it's so effective because you get that impact from just such little like time with animating it, Well,
right, exactly. And it's so fast and it hits in a way that just wouldn't work in a live action like.
Because I think they tried it, like they tried doing a sample thing of like how long it would take for the actual action to happen in real life. And they're like, no, the comic timing doesn't work for it. So that's where they animated it. They removed some of the frames and they kept it mostly to the impact and the reaction. And it works a lot better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like that's also, I think, like part and parcel of the value of the medium and what Satoshi Kon was interested in doing with it is that he understood that he could do things with animation they just couldn't with real life, with real actors.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I remember that being a point of contention with Perfect Blue because initially when it was purchased, like it was based on a book or some kind of novella, whatever that was written at the time, I think that they were trying to see if they could get it optioned to being made in real life, like to be made in live action. But I think it was too expensive, which is weird that they would have it go to anime instead. But it ended up happening, and we are richer for it because if it had just gone to be like a TV movie, it probably would have been pretty forgettable. So, and it's just something about like having the hallucination kind of like levels of something like the ending of Perfect Blue, like where she's really going full fledged with her, hallucinations and everything that can really kind of more encapsulate like the magic of animation.
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
like just, it's just. I just can't say enough of it. I really just miss him mostly is what I want to get at because we lost him way too soon. He died of pancreatic cancer. He was like 44. It was crazy, like early 40s. Poor guy.
Pancreatic cancer is ruthless.
Yeah, I forget. I think it was 2011 was when he passed away. I'm pretty sure.
Sounds about right. But we as like. I think the entirety of cinema loses something for his loss. Like I think
it's true.
Slightly poorer because of it.
Agreed. Oh, I do have one other point that I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
In the house of the angel. Sorry, that was kind of tasteless.
I was talking about that in my class yesterday. Go on.
Anyway,
Fuck up, Sarah McLachlan.
grow up. Things happen. No, anyway. I did want to mention that this does also feature music by the composer Hirasawa Susumu, who has had a long-running partnership with Satoshi Kon. He's scored many of his movies, including the Paranoia Agent, and I believe he also did Paprika as well.
Yeah.
And
so this is the first one he did for Satoshi Kon.
Yeah, and the reason I think it pairs really well with this film, like it also works well in Perfect Blue because of the nature of the film, but the reason I like it is because Hirasawa Susumu's music is very, it's both very ethereal and also very kind of like techno-y, like it's very based around like samples and stuff like that. And I think it works a lot within the storytelling because like so much of it is kind of like with this, it's not just like a rose-colored glasses kind of thing. It's like, it's both haunting, but it's very pretty. And it's like, it pairs well with Satoshi Kon's films because like, as opposed to someone like Joe Hisashi, who works with Hayao Miyazaki and has scored most of his films that really gets the whole, like the grand, the gigantic scale, the, the whimsy that pairs up with a lot of those films. Hirasawa, I've got so many words going at the same time and I'm having a lot of trouble pronouncing them. Hirasawa Susumu's music is very indicative of the kind of stories that Satoshi Kon wants to tell because they're both somewhat technologically based, but they're also based around like memories, dreams, all that kind of stuff. And it always just seems to like mesh up really well. Like something about like how it's kind of weird. And I think I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. I feel like I'm fucking it up.
Well, I kind of follow. Like, I think like
it's very iconic for his films. I'll say that.
Yeah, it fits perfectly, and I think part of, like, again, you were talking about, like, the grandiosity, however we want to describe it, of something like Hayao Miyazaki, whereas Satoshi Kon's stuff, even, like, when it sort of spirals into something larger, always has a more sort of, like...
It's much more internal, I would say, Well, like, a lot of it, like, there's a lot of, like, anguish and emotional stuff that goes on with it, too. So.
Yeah, but it also always like sort of starts on like a smaller scale, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah, like the stakes aren't usually as grand, but like it's still interesting because you're getting these character studies, and that's typically what they are. Like most of his stories tend to follow like either specific characters or there's some kind of like shared thing that's going on with them. It's not like, oh, we have to save the world, we have to go after the princess generally. It's just more about like people living their lives and what's going on with them, like how like specific instances and circumstances are impacting them as opposed to this big grander scale thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, I think that you can still tell. You can still tell a very compelling story with like much lower stakes like that. So
yeah, well, that's kind of this is sort of a personal thing, but that's what I've been more sort of interested in story wise is these kind of like, smaller stakes narratives where it's not about the end of the world or something, but like.
I think that comes when like when you get a little bit older too, it's like sometimes it's at least like when I was younger, I knew that I really liked the kind of like big grander stuff because you're just like, oh yeah, they're gonna go do the thing. They got to save the world because it's showing the power of like these, like friends or people uniting together to come up against this one force. But like, no, like the older you get, like I think that you can just kind of like follow a story about this one particular person and this is what happens with them,
Yeah. So I think it's two things, right? I think it's that, right? That you kind of like, you're more interested in and able to follow the nuances of a smaller scale story as an adult. Yeah. But I think
because that's a lot of adult life, honestly, smaller scale things that happen. But
yeah, the other thing that I think is perhaps worth noting is where we're at in terms of like a lot of American cinema is the scale's huge, right?
Yeah, and it's exhausting after a while.
It is. Well, Fast and the Furious has gone from like they steal cars to like.
They're such a parody of themselves now. Like it's become like Truckosaurus.
I saw the last one, and literally there's like a secret underground, like techno fetishistic almost society that like is trying to like change the world, and like The Rock and Jason Statham are the only things stopping them.
Yeah, like
apparently. Like, I don't.
This gigantic Samoan beast of a man, and Jason Statham is also there. Also starring Jason Statham.
Yeah, Jason Statham. I mean, don't get me wrong. That movie was a lot of fun, but also like, why? Why are we doing this like grandiose plot when you could just have The Rock and Jason Statham beating the crap out of people for 2 hours?
Yeah, I mean,
Totally
like, frankly,
fine.
you could use the comparison of, like, Marvel movies or just comic book movies in general, you know? Like, where it's like there's...
I can't.
No, I know. I can't either.
spiraled.
I mean, I just don't have the mental capacity for it, because it's like, the problem is that they keep trying to just build things up to get bigger and bigger to the point that it's just kind of, like, ridiculous how much stuff is going on there.
Yeah.
But then you see that contrasted with something like, say, Deadpool, which is, you know, just kind of, like, more about, like, his experiences is both like, you know, he's trying to reunite with his girlfriend within it and everything, but he's also fucking crazy, and he's also very unhinged. Yes. And like, I think that can resonate with people too. He's also vulgar, obviously, but like Ryan Reynolds can sell it, you know, at the same time.
Yeah.
Because like they're compelled to follow his story too.
Yeah, and there's a lot more we could say about this, but I think we're off the rails at this point. So I think we are, but I think it's tied to what we were mentioning about like there's nothing wrong with having smaller scale story things, you know. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I've got for this. I would definitely say check it out if you can. Absolutely. Well, it's on if you've got Prime, it's on there. Subs only. However, I think actually, they're working on it.
They did a re-release of this not too long ago, actually, in August 2009 for I think its 25th anniversary.
There's
25th anniversary, something like that.
The Wikipedia page suggests that there is another version coming out this year.
Is there?
I mean, it's not clear, so I'm a little confused.
I don't know. We'll just say your mileage may vary.
A brand new English dub was released on August 19th, 2019.
Damn. Okay, I did not see that. I wonder if that's.
So I don't know. I'm gonna hunt that down if I can.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I know. Right. I cannot believe I have not seen more press for that, because I knew that they had done the re-release thing of Perfect Blue. That was a big thing earlier this year.
Oh, that was huge. Yeah. I'm not getting into it. I won't do it.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, if you can check this out, I highly recommend that you do. I think it'll probably be pretty readily available. You can easily still buy the pre-existing DVD, but before they did the re-release thing, as far as I know. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got on this one. Shall we do our handles, Robbie?
Yeah.
Okay. Robbie, where can they find you?
As always, I'm Lobster_writer on Twitter. Tracy, where do they find you?
Thank you, Robbie. They can find me on Instagram and Twitter via @TCTroush. You can find our show website via notjoannaeggs.tumblr.com. You can also find our YouTube channel, which has these episodes uploaded. If that's easier for you, go for it. Just search for Not Joanna Eggs. You should see our little head logo thing pop up. Just click on that. You can subscribe, check out the videos, whatever. And yeah, that's most of it. Yeah, I don't know. Any other personal projects you want to plug right now or stuff like that, or nah?
No, not really. I mean, my the episode I did for International Podcast Month has been out for a while, and both the blog pieces I wrote are up. So if you want to read me gush about podcasting and about a specific podcast, you can do that at internationalpodcastmonth.com, and then just click the blog button.
Hell yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Please let us know what you think of this. Just Twitter's probably going to be the easiest way to contact us. And if you have anything that you want us to check out, please contact us through that too. And yeah, I reckon we will talk at you next time. Thank you. And goodbye.
Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of Not Joanna Eggs. Our intro music is Don't Hold My Breath by Ben Briggs, and the outro is Wet Dreams by Phonetic Hero. Both were found on ocremix.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you use. Not Joanna Eggs, because animation is for everyone. Thanks.